are your men?
Masaje whispered.
The men you sent, they were cursed by Zigiza.
Child of Ziga can escape my wrath.
No one can live in Ziga.
The chief priest said, his voice hollow.
So we are trapped.
Back in the village of Nziga, Zigiza's fury reached its peak. The great tree groaned and shook violently, shaking the forest with its anger, and from its gaping mouth, a swarm of bees erupted, darkening the skies like a storm. The bees, unlike any seen before, were big, with glowing eyes and a relentless hum that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. The buzzing was deafening as the swarm descended upon the village, attacking without mercy. Villagers ran in every direction, screaming as the bees stung them repeatedly. Many fled into their huts, hoping for refuge, but it was futile. The bees seemed to penetrate walls, stinging every inch of flesh they could find. The pain was excruciating, yet no one died. It was as if Zigiza had stolen death itself, ensuring that everyone in Nziga would live to endure the torment. The village became a scene of chaos, the once vibrant land now a hive of suffering. After what felt like an eternity, the bees vanished as suddenly as they had come, but the damage was done. The villagers were left trembling in fear, too scared to leave their huts, dreading the possibility of another attack. In the palace, Queen Uwa could no longer bear the sight of her people's torment. Covered in welts from the bees' stings, Queen Uwa stumbled out of the palace, ignoring the calls of her husband and the gods. She ran to a mango tree behind the courtyard, her breath ragged and her body trembling. There, beneath the shade of the tree, she began digging frantically with her bare hands, ignoring the dirt and pain. She uncovered the spot where she had buried her child's placenta years ago. Tears streaming down her face, she scooped out the middle soil and clutched it tightly to her chest. With a determined cry, she ran to the center of the courtyard, her presence silencing the chaos around her. Raising the soil high, she shouted, "Wherever you are, my child, hear my cry. You are the only one who can save us. May the soil find you." With that, she blew the soil into the air. The dust swirled and danced as it traveled upward. Suddenly, a deafening clap of thunder struck her, and she fell to the ground, lifeless. The villagers who had been watching from a distance froze in terror. Even the king dared not approach her body, for they all feared that Zigiza's wrath could consume anyone who touched her. Far away in the village of Zango, Malia was resting beneath a tree in the bush, exhausted from the day's training. She was deep in sleep when she suddenly sneezed, jolting awake. For a moment, she felt strange, as though something had entered her. She sat upright, her heart pounding. The feeling was unfamiliar, yet powerful, as if a part of her had just awakened. Quickly, she got to her feet and ran to the palace. Bursting into the queen's chamber, she found Queen Atalia sitting pensively. "Mother," Malia said breathlessly, "I must go. I must go find my people." Queen Atalia's eyes widened in shock. She studied her daughter's face and saw the determination burning within her. Though her heart ached at the thought of losing Malia, she knew there was no stopping her now. Queen Atalia, determined to help her, held her daughter's hand and led her deep into the forest. The trees stood tall and ancient, their canopies casting shadows that danced eerily in the dim light. At last, they arrived at a small covered hut. Inside sat Udi, an old blind seer whose presence exuded wisdom and mystery. The queen bowed slightly before speaking. "Great Udi, my daughter here seeks your guidance for the journey ahead. Please help her." Udi nodded, motioning for Malia to kneel. The young woman obeyed, her heart pounding with both fear and determination. The seer placed her frail hand on Malia's head, and instantly, a whirlwind of visions consumed her mind. Udi saw flashes of a raging forest, a towering tree with glowing eyes, and Malia standing before it as lightning crackled in the sky. She saw pain, fire, and a choice that will determine Malia's fate. Udi abruptly removed her hand, her face pale with fear. "My child," Udi said, her voice trembling, "why do you wish to embark on this journey to the land of Nziga?" Malia looked up, her resolve unshaken. "I have a feeling that my people are in trouble, and I must help them." Udi sighed heavily and nodded. "Very well then, but know this, the tree god Zigiza awaits your soul. The moment you step into Nziga, it will sense you. If you do not destroy Zigiza upon your arrival, the tree god will destroy you instead." Queen Atalia, now trembling with fear, fell to her knees, clutching Malia's hands. "Please, Udi, help my child. There must be a way." After a long silence, the seer spoke. "You cannot destroy Zigiza as a human. To defeat it, you must transform into a giant. But beware, if you fail to destroy Zigiza by sunset on the day you cross the Great River, you will revert to your human form, and your powers will be lost. In that state, Zigiza will be able to harm you." Malia's eyes widened as she looked to her mother in fear. Queen Atalia placed her hands on Malia's shoulders and whispered, "You can do this, my child. You were born for this." Udi then handed Malia a kola nut. Its surface smooth and gleaming. "Chew this after you have crossed the Great River," the seer instructed. "It will grant you the transformation you need." Queen Atalia thanked Udi profusely, tears streaming down her face, before leading Malia back through the forest. Back in the village of Zango, the women warriors gathered to bid farewell to Malia. Their faces were somber, some streaked with tears as they offered prayers and blessings for her safety. Many touched her shoulders and murmured words of encouragement, knowing the danger ahead. Queen Atalia stood before her daughter, holding the delicate necklace. She placed it around Malia's neck and whispered, "Never forget the land where you were raised. We are your family, and we will always love you." She kissed Malia on the forehead, her lips lingering as if trying to imprint her love on her child. Stepping back, the queen let out a sharp whistle. Moments later, the sky darkened as a giant eagle descended, its wings beating powerfully against the air. The women gasped in awe as the majestic creature landed gracefully before them. Queen Atalia turned to the eagle. "Take this, my child, to the land of Nziga," she commanded. Malia mounted the eagle, clutching its feathers tightly. The massive bird spread its wings and took flight, rising high into the sky. Below, the women warriors of Zango watched silently, their hearts heavy as they saw her disappear into the horizon. The great eagle carried Malia high into the night sky, soaring over towering mountains and dense forests. The moonlight illuminated her determined face as she clung tightly to the bird's feathers. By morning, they were over the great river. The waters shimmered below, vast and endless, as the eagle flew swiftly across. Once they reached the other side, the eagle descended gracefully, dropping Malia onto the ground before spreading its wings and vanishing into the horizon. Malia stood alone now. She was in the land of Nziga. Her heart pounded as she reached for the kola nut Udi had given her. Quickly, she chewed it, feeling a strange warmth spread through her body. Her vision blurred, and she felt herself grow taller, her strength multiplying until she was no longer human, but a towering giant. Back in the village of Nziga, the sky darkened as thick clouds began to gather. The villagers, weary of the long drought, rejoiced at the thought of rain, but their joy quickly turned to fear as flocks of birds flew away in a haste, their cries echoing in the ominous silence. Sensing danger, the villagers ran into their huts, barring their doors and windows. The chief priest burst into the king's chambers, his voice trembling.
"Your Majesty, the savior has come."
The king and his council hurried outside, but what they saw left them speechless. A giant woman warrior, clad in armor unlike anything they had ever seen, was striding toward the heart of Nziga. Her presence exuded power and determination, and it terrified them. In fear, the king turned to the chief priest.
"Is my child a giant?"
The chief priest, his face lined with frustration, retorted,
"How am I supposed to know, Your Majesty?"
Before they could speak further, a deafening groan echoed through the village, making the ground quake violently. Zigiza had awakened, its massive mouth wide open, spitting fire. Its groans shook the air, and its glowing eyes radiated rage. Malia, now a giant, wasted no time. She charged toward the tree, her sword gleaming. Zigiza roared, its branches lashing out like whips. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Fire and lightning erupted from Zigiza, while Malia fought back with her sword and brute strength. The clash shook the entire village, sending wild animals fleeing from the forest in terror. The battle seemed endless. Malia grew exhausted as she fought off Zigiza's relentless attacks. The tree god advanced, its roots wrapping around her as it prepared to swallow her. Summoning every ounce of her strength, Malia aimed her sword at its glowing heart. With one swift motion, she pierced the heart of the almighty Zigiza. The tree let out an earth-shaking scream, its branches thrashing wildly and destroying everything around it. Malia, breathing heavily, advanced again. As the sun dipped closer to the horizon, she drove her sword deeper into Zigiza's heart, burying it completely. With a final blood-curdling roar, Zigiza's eyes dimmed, its mouth closed, and its massive form dissolved into a pile of dust. The sky cleared and the dark clouds disappeared. For the first time in years, sunlight shone upon the land of Nziga. The villagers, sensing that the evil had been vanquished, rushed toward the forest. When they arrived at the spot where Zigiza once stood, they saw only a vast heap of wood dust. By its side lay a beautiful female warrior, unconscious and now normal in size. Her attire was unlike anything they had seen, and her presence was mysterious. "Make way!" the chief priest shouted as the king approached. The villagers parted, allowing him through. King Kunzi ran to the unconscious woman and gently cradled her in his arms. Tears filled his eyes as he declared,
This is my daughter!
Gasps rippled through the crowd as the king explained everything Queen Ua had told him before her death. But instead of anger, the villagers began to clap and cheer. They were grateful that the evil tree god was gone and that peace had returned to their land. With Zigiza destroyed, the land of Nziga began to heal. The rains returned and the rivers filled once more. Crops grew abundantly, and the women of Nziga gave birth to healthy, beautiful children. Each year, the villagers held a festival to honor Queen Ua, remembering her bravery and sacrifice. Years later, King Kunzi passed away, leaving the throne to Malia. She was crowned Queen of Nziga amidst great celebration. Her reign marked a new beginning for the village. In her first act as queen, she welcomed the women warriors of Zango to Nziga, uniting the two lands. Together, they rebuilt the kingdom, fostering harmony and strength. And so, under Queen Malia's wise and courageous rule, the people of Nziga and Zango lived together in peace, their lands flourishing for generations to come. If you enjoyed the story and would like to see more interesting stories, please consider subscribing to this channel, not forgetting to turn on the bell notification icon so that once another video is being posted, you will be the first to be notified. You can also check out those videos here. I promise you won't be disappointed. Till we meet again in my next video, remain blessed.